Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you again. Black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
Hello there, everybody. This is Jay coming to you with the GSMC Technology Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. So, we have a few interesting things to bring up on this episode, so let's just jump right in. So, the first big one is Bitcoin has turned 10 years old. That's right. This is a technology that, it says few people have used and even few understand, and heck, I'm one of those that doesn't really understand it. I don't really get it. It was believed to be, the biggest change to banking, finance, and politics ever, but it could also end up being a dud too. It's kind of hard to tell. The jury is still out with this. So, I'm taking a little trip through memory lane for this and see where it began and where it's gone and where it's going to be now. So, Bitcoin pretty much gets born about 10 years ago, where people want to try to find to help pretty much to the, there was a big financial crisis going on, just basic cryptography techniques that, could send value from computer to computer without a middleman. So this, revolutionary idea at the time proposed a brave new world in which many of the established players, banks, Wall Street, and governments were basically left out. And from there, Mt. Gox was a Magic the Gathering trading site, which happened to be one of the first Bitcoin exchanges that captured the popular imagination. It was built on faulty software. The site began leaking like a sieve, which set a solid precedent for countless exchanges that would come after. In fact, it quickly became a rite of passage for exchanges to suffer a massive and frightening data breach. And when it came to Bitcoin, these breaches could get very, very expensive. And then next, privacy zealots cried freedom, and Bitcoin was believed to be the vehicle down that long trail. Nowhere was this clearer or more controversial than on the Silk Road. This wild and woolly market was supposed to be the defining tool of a new century. But once greed replaced poorly worded ideals, you got a mess. The Silk Road is also famous for one other thing, making Bitcoin seem like a haven for drug dealers and murderers. So the next part was venture entered the game. Investors started looking into Bitcoin in 2014 and their interest, and cash drove an entire industry of blockchain creators and charlatans. What was the result of this? 100 startups and really not a single winner except for the massive exchanges that began raking in the dough. The idea of B2B blockchains took off just like it did in the days before TCP/IP, as hundreds of competing ideas fought in the marketplace of ideas. But once the money ran out, so did the inspiration. Left standing was only Bitcoin. And on July 30th, 2015, the Bitcoin protocol got its first real competition with the launch of Aetherium. This was a new blockchain technology that tried to sever the link between crypto and fiat currency. And a young programmer named Vitalik Buterin from Canada intended to build a methodology for distributed computing. Of course, in reality, the fun unicorns and kittens associated with Aetherium opened it up to a new audience and built some of the first distributed apps designed to run on thousands of computers at once. Of course, the most famous, the DAO, was sadly quickly hacked. The launch of Ethereum's token framework created thousands of cryptocurrency projects, or distributed applications, ranging from the aforementioned kittens to alternatives for existing services like GitHub and Dropbox. Thousands of companies, launched to take advantage of what was fast becoming cryptomania. Startups once used to $500,000 seed rounds were getting $25 million in 30 minutes. A situation that did buzz crypto fandom to dizzying heights. Investors are drawn in by the hundreds of billions of dollars now flowing through various Bitcoin and, of course, the hundreds of Ethereum projects. Indeed, the Ethereum ERC20 framework did create paper unicorns like Block 1, which developed its own competing protocol alongside distributed applications like Tezos, which was a self-regulating contract system, and Filecoin, a distributed Dropbox application. Of course, none of these products delivered. Yet. Coinbase is now bigger than many of the cryptocurrencies it holds. What this does mean in reality is unclear. No bank is bigger than the government it serves, but at this early date, it seems like Coinbase has the right idea. Make yourself easy for anyone to use, and everyone, including Wall Street, will come calling. As cryptocurrencies entered the mainstream marketers decided they wanted a piece. This sadly, marketers cut their teeth on multi-level marketing and scam schemes and hired the only financial folk they could afford, the disgraced ex-traders of Wall Street who lent a trace of acceptability to their wild schemes. The results, sadly, were spams, scams, and lawsuits. But as this market changes and grows, the big money is flowing in, and real investors are starting to expect better returns. As we enter Bitcoin's 10th year, we find ourselves at a crossroads. Just as Linux was once the prevalence of zealots and obsessives, the current crypto market is closed and confusing. But as legislators and established players enter the market, Bitcoin is getting buttoned up. Expect the next decade to be full of change and confusion. But it looks like Bitcoin is here to stay. So the only thing I had really seen of Bitcoin before, reading this article and getting a better idea of it was actually on one of the more recent seasons of The Big Bang Theory, where it was believed that, 5-10 years ago, Kuthra Polly and Howard and Leonard and Sheldon all decided, hey, let's, put in some money and just make some Bitcoin, right? Which supposedly for a while around this episode had gotten really, really worth a lot of money, like millions of dollars or something like that, right? So they're going about, let's try to find this, flash drive where this Bitcoin was on, and they can't find it. So they try to find it through the whole episode, and in the end, they just can't find it. It's sadly what happens. It turns out, Sheldon had put it on a little, Batman flash drive that, Leonard usually had on his keychain. And he admitted he'd lost it a few years ago. And I think that actually, if memory serves me, Sheldon might have sent on this, little kind of chase to try to find it, right? And so what happens is, we find out at the very end of the episode, Stuart finds it. He decides just to erase it. He can sell it for $5-10. So whatever Bitcoin they did have, gone. There was a bit about Bitcoin, too, in a movie called Dope that I saw that was a good film. I highly recommend it. But that's all I've seen of it. And this really sounds like one of those things where, it has the potential to be good. I really think it does. It has the potential, it could be a new form of currency someday. Maybe it'll be easier. Maybe it'll be easier to use and all that stuff. But like I've said on this, podcast before, it's something I think really needs to be fine-tuned, needs to be made more user-friendly, and clearly, by what this article says, find a way to put either better firewalls around it or something like that, because it sounds like every time it tried to get off the ground, or hey, it tried to be this great thing, scams and viruses and things like that came along, and those don't help anybody. It's like, I get the emails every once in a while on the calls about, hey, we're here to help you with, student loan forgiveness. That's not what it is. It's just not. It's a scam. Sadly, it's a scam. I wish it wasn't. I wish hey, the student loan debt I have here, take it, make it disappear, just for free. So it sounds like that's happened a lot with this, but it also sounds like there's something that, if they fine tune it and they, test it and really kind of get it better, I think one day it could be the future. But at this point in time, happy 10 years to Bitcoin, but in that 10 years, Looks like only a dent has been made. But I thought it was a kind of interesting little thing to bring on here, and there's a lot of really cool history here on it. So if you didn't know much about Bitcoin before like I did, you know a little bit more about it now. So we're going to take ourselves a short little break here, and we'll be back in a few moments with more technology news.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Hello there, everybody. This is Jay, back for some more technology news. So, the next thing I'm going to talk about here is something that is rather interesting. If you've listened to this, podcast before, I do like to talk about 3D printers. 3D printers, 3D printed objects, because really, to me, the technology kind of fascinates me. It does. It seems like, one of those cool wave of the future things that is slowly kind of going almost from science fiction to science fact is almost kind of how I see it sometimes. So if I see an article about it, I'm usually going to bring it here. You just so you know, you're warned now. In future, if I see something 3D printer related, I am probably going to bring it to this episode. Because, I think it fits for this episode. It fits for this topic. And it's a really interesting technology that, there's so much more work being done on it than I originally knew about. And there's so many implications for this technology. So, what does the topic I'm bringing now have to do with 3D printing? Well, I'm glad you asked. So, there's an interesting device called Zortrax Apoller. And I really hope I'm saying that right. Forgive me if I don't. So, the Zortrax Apoller is a smart vapor smoothing device that uses solvents to smooth the surface of 3D printed objects. The resulting products will look like they are injection molded, and all of the little lines associated with FDM printing will disappear. So this system uses a microwave-like chamber that can hold multiple parts at once. The chamber atomizes the solvent, covering the parts, and lets the solvent do its work. Once it's done, it then sucks the excess vapor back into a collection chamber. The system won't open until all of the solvent is gone, ensuring you don't get a face full of acetone, which I've never had. I'm going to take a wild guess. It's not a lot of fun. I'm going to guess it's not a barrel of laughs and not something you probably want to happen. So this is an important consideration since this is sold as a desktop device, and having clouds of solvent in the air at the office Christmas party could be messy, which I understand that. I could totally see that happening. So, given the often flimsy structural quality of FDM prints, this smoothing is more cosmetic and allows you, in theory, to create molds from 3D printed parts. Now, in reality, of course, these glossy, acetone smooth parts just look better and give you a better idea what the finished product, injection molded or milled, will look like when all is said and done. So kind of like I've talked in the past here, this is really a new technology that is basically just going to wants to make it a little bit easier to not only 3D print, but to kind of update the quality of said 3D print, right? So whatever object you print is going to look smoother and not have, rough edges, and it's not going to have, little pieces hanging off it and things like that. And it sounds like what's also interesting is, if I read this correctly, so it'll create a mold too, which means like molds, as far as I understand them, is what people use to make face masks in movies and different things like that. So, like Halloween masks and movie masks and makeup and and things like that. So, a mold, like you'll kind of make the mold and then you'll put the stuff into said mold and it, form fits it and stuff like that. So it sounds like I would be lying if I said I fully understood what this is. And I don't know an insanely huge amount about it. But like I said, it was 3D technology. And so I decided to bring it here. And it sounds like this is just basically something that, is just going to kind of help the finished product. I don't know if it's going to help the process much. If it's going to make it easier or not. It sounds like, you have to be careful with it, clearly. And you don't want to, have any cracks happen and to have stuff get out, because it could cause clearly some very bad things if that happens. But it sounds like if it can hold multiple parts at once, that means you can probably print multiple things at once, which I think, to my knowledge, most 3D printers don't have that capability. To my knowledge, as far as I understand the 3D printing technology, which I've said before, I'm not an expert, you print one object at a time. Depending on the size and density of said object, depends how quick said object prints, but usually said object is not going to print in a matter of minutes or a matter of seconds. To my knowledge, as far as I understand it, most objects are going to take a couple hours to print. That's just what's going to happen. And it's usually going to be a smaller object, not a gargantuanly huge object. That's just the way it's going to be. And it sounds like this makes it where if you can print a couple parts at once, or you can print a couple of them at a time, it'll definitely have a chance to, print, more than one thing at a time, which is great. So it'll speed up that process a little bit, which is really, really cool. And it sounds like, because to my knowledge, most of the 3D printers use ribbons. That's usually how they work. You put in some kind of plastic spool or something like that. And that's how you print said object that you're printing, right? So it sounds like this uses a solvent, which means that, so again, if I'm understanding what this is saying, you'll put the device in a mold and then the solvent goes into said mold. So it's still technically 3D prints the object, I think, but I think it's changing the process of how it's doing it, if I'm understanding what this article is saying. And that sounds like it's what it's saying. So it's kind of trying to flip the whole process on its head. It doesn't say if this makes the process faster or more user-friendly, or it doesn't even really give a cost to what this process is like, because to my knowledge, this is just kind of bringing hey, we've got this new thing here that we're trying to make this, a different way to do this. So I would guess, as far as I can tell here, it's still in its experimental stages. But this is something that it sounds like they do want to try to make the process easier and quicker, and definitely have the product come out, much finer and in better structural quality and things like that, and more smooth. So it's cosmetic. So that's basically what it's saying. So, but it's just, that's all it's going to be. That sounds like in a nutshell what it's going to be. So it's interesting. I would say the name needs a little bit of work. Maybe that's just me, the Zortrax Apoller. It's like, yeah. But, I'd love to say I completely understand this thing here, but I just, if I'm being honest with you, I really don't. But what I can say is that it's interesting. That's for sure. It is kind of intriguing. I decided to bring this to this episode because I'm like, you know what? It sounds kind of cool. It really does. And I think there could be some really cool, implications there. Maybe some benefits to 3D printing, because as far as I can tell, 3D printing could be the future. It really could. Now, like anything, it's going to have its good, points and bad points, but yeah, I think it has the potential to be the future. I really do. I think this is something one day could be in every home. I think so. Just like how, washers and dryers are, and, dishwashers are, and, heating and air, and, things like that, like microwaves, ovens. I think one day this could be a normal part of just any home, and especially if someday, and this is just, the sci-fi part of me coming out, if we go to space travel someday, you're going to want something like this. You're not going to be able to like go around and go, hey, I want to go buy this or go buy that. It's like, no, you're just not going to be able to do that. You're going to probably have to make it yourself, right? So this is a technology that really fascinates me. And even though this, only seems to like kind of fix a part of the process, in the long run, that may, help this like become a mainstream thing, right? It just might. Of course, the price going down and the process being sped up would help, but yeah, I thought it was really kind of cool. So I will definitely, as I hear more about 3D printing, I'll be sure to bring it to this podcast. So we're going to take ourselves another short little break, and we'll be back in a few moments with more technology news.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hey everybody, this is Jay, back with more technology news. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, and again, if you've listened to my episodes before, you might have an idea what's going to come up. It's kind of becoming a pattern, but I can't help it. It is technology, and it's something that I'm really excited about. So this is Dragonball Fighterz. So Dragonball Fighterz is a game I actually originally got to play in 2017 at E3. So when it comes to Dragon Ball, I have not really played, I haven't really watched Dragon Ball. I just haven't, like, it went from like Dragon Ball Z and like all these like, like different places from it. I've heard it's really good. I've heard a lot of friends say it's a really awesome series. I really need to check it out, but kind of like Doctor Who and like Star Trek even, it's a big series with lots and lots and lots of episodes. Like, I think hundreds of episodes over however many years. It's been around like 15, 20 years, something like that. So there's a lot of episodes there. Now, of course, they also did a live-action movie that I didn't see, but I heard I didn't miss anything. I heard that it was really, really bad. Now, of course, because let's have a white guy be an Asian guy, that's something that Hollywood has done, and, shame Hollywood for shame, I say. I mean, you should know better. But anyways, so Dragon Ball, I've never, ever watched the cartoons, ever. I haven't watched the episodes. I haven't watched any of the series, which there's more than one. And I really know nothing about the characters. I just don't. It's just the way it is. So, anyways, so I want to say 2017, I'm at E3. They're like, hey, we have this game called Dragon Ball Fighterz. I'm like, sure, I'll try it out. Why not? And it's basically a Dragon Ball fighting game. That's basically what it is. You're going around as some different Dragon Ball characters. You're fighting each other. You have, 3 characters. It usually does like, best out of 3 rounds is usually how it goes. And I'll admit I had fun. It was a fun game. It was pretty cool how the graphics were. It was kind of cartoony, but I had fun. I enjoyed it, right? I thought it was a good game. It was a fun game, And last year it came out on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And I went to E3 this last year. They had a demo of it again. I was like, you know what? Yeah, let me play this game again. It was kind of fun. I enjoyed it. It'd be fun to try this game out again and just play it again, right? It could be fun. So I decided to, play it again. And I heard that, hey, it's coming to, Nintendo Switch. I'm like, I happen to have a Nintendo Switch. So I could actually maybe play a review copy or like, or try this game out this time. I could actually do that. So, I happened to, get a review copy of this game, and It was interesting for starters because, again, when I just played the demo, it's like, hey, you're just doing arcade mode. It's like person against person, fighting each other. I think they even had on, like, the fighting pads. It wasn't like, necessarily a controller. And with most fighting games, it was a learning curve. So that's all I'd ever played before. So I get, the review copy of it. I'm like, hey, there's an adventure mode. I'm like, all right, I'll try this out. Sure, why not? And the adventure mode, it was fun. But it was very, very expansive. It actually told a story where somehow you've ended in Goku's body. So you've kind of taken over Goku's body. That's what's happened. Like, Goku himself isn't technically Goku himself, which is one of the main characters in Dragon Ball. And, there's some kind of weird thing going on here. There's evil, like, robot versions of you and your friends going around. As you go along in the story, you get to, there's tutorials where you get to practice your moves and get a hang of your combos and moves and special attacks and things like that. You get to unlock more players, your friends, as the story goes along. And, it's a really fun, mode, don't be wrong, but it's very, very expansive, much more expansive than I ever thought it was going to be. And it's got a really interesting original story, and I liked it because, like I said, I didn't know how to play this game too much at first. I really didn't. And doing the adventure mode, I'm like, all right, now there's some characters I'm comfortable with. There's some characters I can play as, and you know what? I can actually play as these characters pretty good. It's just the truth. I'm like, you know what? These are some characters I actually kind of have the hang of now. And it's really cool. You get to go around, kind of like you can switch your characters around as you want. You can give them little power-ups as you want. You can level them up as you want. There's sometimes you can fight up, like, say you're level 6 and the, bad guy you go against level 13. If you beat said bad guy, you get more, experience, and therefore you get to update, level up your characters, your teammates, your party a bit faster. And, it was just a cool little story. Like, you go through it and you find out, hey, this is happening to other parts of your friends. There's parts you can play as bad guys a little bit here and there. I didn't get all the way through it. There's I think 3 main chapters, and the one I did play, it's expansive. You only have so many moves. You have to choose, okay, where to go here and where to go there. And do you want to do this or do you not want to do that? Luckily, there's one time I went through one mode and I, missed getting a party member, but I got to go back and get said party member. So that was kind of nice. And, it was a lot of fun, but it was definitely a little challenging too. There were a few interesting, but sort of, predictable twists and turns as the mode I played, went along. But it was a really, really fun game. I really enjoyed it. It was just kind of cool to get the hang of it. I liked it on the Switch, but I had played it on the PlayStation as well before, so it's fun on the PlayStation 2. Don't get me wrong, it is. But but I had a lot of fun playing this game. It kind of gave me a bit of an idea of the characters, like their connections to each other and things like that. It was definitely a different fighting game. I'll give it that for sure. It's not your normal run-of-the-mill fighting game. No, it's very different. It's very, unique and different. It's cartoony. The power-ups are really strong. Some of the combos, if you get the hang of them, are really, really strong. Some of the characters I had more fun playing as than others. Some characters I had were stronger than others. And, I'd say definitely if you're a fan of Dragon Ball, this is a game you're going to want to play. You'll probably know the characters better than I did. You'll probably know their backstories better than I did. You'll probably understand the story maybe even a little bit more than I did. Although I'm not sure if this story has ever shown up in any of the movies or cartoons or a series or anything like that. I'm not really sure, but I want to say they probably haven't. So this has been available on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, I think, since last year. And it became available on the Nintendo Switch on September 16th, 2018. So it's available now. So, I would highly recommend to try it out. It could be a fun game to play with your friends. Like I said, if you, if they're just, there's also the really good adventure mode. And, I would suggest doing that adventure mode because it's kind of like the more recent Mortal Kombat games. You almost want to do the adventure mode or the conquest mode so you can play as different characters, unlock new characters, new powers and techniques for those characters, and just get a better feel for those characters. So, Yeah, I would highly recommend doing it. And it's very expansive. It's going to take up your time a little bit because there's so much going on and so much to see and do. But it's also a lot of fun. And the story it tells is a really, really fun, really, really cool story. So, yeah, it was a really fun game. It's available now. And, yeah, I would say if you're a Dragon Ball fan, you're going to probably have hours and hours and hours of fun playing it. That's just how I see it going. So that's all the time we have for this technology episode. Hope you learned some really cool things. I know I did, and I had a lot of fun bringing them to you. And we'll be back real soon with more technology news.